sweetie. Watch. Watch and pray. That's the message from the gospel today. And sometimes it's very hard for us to do that. Watch means to focus, to pay attention to. I remember a scene when I was a child in the classroom. My friend Joe taught how many years in elementary school? 46 years, so you can relate to this. We were gathered in a classroom, second graders. We taught second grade. Rainy days are a nightmare, right? So here are all these kids, 50 kids in a classroom and sisters there, and it's a rainy day, and there's nothing but chaos and negativity. Detours from reality, distractions, you know how little kids are. And then they're fighting with each other and squabbling and talk and bicker and throwing things. And sister was about to go out of her mind. And she was a pretty stable, down-to-earth person, but she was near despair. Because as soon as she settled one thing, one negative little squabble or distraction here in one corner of the classroom, there would be another one over on the other side of the classroom. But that particular day, she had arranged for us, before she knew it was going to be a rainy day, she had arranged for us to have entertainment with a friend of hers who was what? A magician. And he walked in and he instantly sized up the situation, poor sister near despair. Negativity and chaos everywhere, the kids all over the place, crammed into this room on a sweltering on a rainy day. And he said, watch! Watch me, watch what I'm about to do. Instantly there was silence. Instantly everybody forgot themselves, first of all, and then everything else as well. Instantly, in a split second, there was a self-transcendent moment where everybody did exactly what said. We were watching, totally focused on, absorbed by him. As he took a rock, this ugly little rock, put it into his top hat, and bingo, out came a dove, a beautiful dove. Oh my, we all said. We were mesmerized, we were captivated, we were absorbed by him and what he had just done, what he had just accomplished. No longer was there negativity, no longer chaos, no longer those disruptions. Sister was going, oh, thank God. I've been saved. It was peace and quiet because everybody, all those kids were absorbed in what they had just seen. What does Jesus say to us in the gospel today? Watch. Watch who? Watch what? Watch me! And see what I am about to do. With you. For you. Unless we watch him. Unless we are absorbed. Yes, absorbed by, captivated by, mesmerized by him. And him alone, we become, as Pope Francis said, self-referential. And then, like those little children crammed into a little room on a rainy day, we become, what? Chaotic. Chaos and negativity. Incessant. And the Lord doesn't know what to do with it. He says, watch. Watch what I'm about to do. The Lord, however, isn't a magician. He doesn't perform a magic act. He is love itself come into the world. Divine love joined to human love that becomes what for us? Saving, redemptive. He heals us. He purifies us. He enlightens us. He finally transforms us. The water of our life into wine, new wine, the gift of the Spirit. The rock, the hard, ugly rock, as this magician took, transformed into a beautiful dove. Watch and see what I can do and will do for you. And pray always for that, to be absorbed in me and by me alone. That's what we do in this Eucharist. We're meant to become captivated by, to watch and pray, absorbed in the Lord and the worship of God. And what makes us able to do that? The fact that we're created in His image, in the image and likeness of God, that we have God's stuff, as it were. We are God's stuff, God in our DNA. We're created for that watching, because we're created in, we are the image of God. And so we have something built into us by God Himself that allows for that watching and that prayer. So that life does not take us as a snare, as we heard in the gospel today, a snare that traps us unawares. We're created in the image of God. The word image in Greek is from what we derive the word icon in English. And so today we're going to hear about icons. Ourselves as an icon of God. The church is an icon of God. And images, holy images that reflect the presence of God, the incarnation of God, Christ in our midst and His most holy mother and the saints, the communion of the saints through these images. And we're delighted to have Father Damian, who is the Abbot of Holy Transfiguration Monastery with the monks of Mount Tabor. He's their superior near Ukiah and Redwood Valley. Father and I have known each other since creation. Well, at least the early 70s. and we were students together in San Francisco. We worked together at the St. Anthony Foundation in San Francisco for years. Father worked with the elderly poor in the Tenderloin, very dedicated and devoted to them. I worked with the homeless, mentally ill homeless, especially homeless women in San Francisco, the Tenderloin. And then Father entered the monks of Mount Tabor and has become the abbot of this monastery, a contemplative monastery of the Ukrainian Byzantine Catholic Church of the Eparchy of Chicago. And so we're delighted to have Father here, and we welcome him and the monks of Mount Tabor who have come with him, the brothers who have come to be part of our day today. Father is an iconographer. He is someone who takes seriously everything that I just said about us being in the image of God, and has dedicated his life of prayer and of developing the skill of being an iconographer to share that gift with many, many monasteries and churches over the years. So today he's going to describe that, not only the skill, but the theology, spirituality of icons in our conference today. We're delighted to have him as our concelebrant and co-homilist today, and as our conference speaker today. So I'll let him give you another mini homily after this as we warmly welcome Father Damian and the monks of Mount Tabor.
Hopefully mini is the operative word here. We know that as we move into the period that is generally referred to as Great Lent, it's a time of suffering. For some people, at least that's the way they see it. For you, you're already in that. To have one sermon and now a second sermon at a liturgy, I can't apply any more of an ascetical effort towards you. So I just want to say a brief word that will hopefully connect what we are celebrating now with what we'll talk about this afternoon upstairs. Death, we're remembering our brothers and sisters that have died today. And I suspect that there's no one here, maybe the littlest of us doesn't know this yet, but that hasn't been touched by the experience of losing people that have died. And if you haven't experienced the fullness of that, you will at some point in your life. What is so wonderful for me about the icons is that they remind us, even when we see Christ nailed to the cross, the icon doesn't speak of death as the defining reality of Christ's humanity. Life does. The icon is, in fact, images of people. Every icon that we have in this room, I served in a church in Augusta, Georgia for a number of years, and it was always rather interesting for me. The wonderful little neighbor that I lived in was inhabited mostly by iconoclasts, wonderful Christian people who would have considered this a voodoo temple. Just because of the image. For them, Christianity was devoid of imagery. And so they really helped me to develop a language to be able to teach people about why not only the image is a luxury, this is not just a church that's been decorated, they're essential. We can't pray, at least in the notion of Eastern Christian spirituality, without imagery. Not that we end with the imagery, but we begin with it. Because Jesus Christ, when he died and rose from the dead, it was a real human body. And that body that comes forth from the tomb had eyeballs. And therefore eyeballs are also meant to be redeemed and saved. We're not going to get into heaven. We're not going to be redeemed just by the little section of our body that we call the brain or the mind. The whole being is meant to be redeemed, and iconography celebrates that. But it says something very powerfully, even as we're remembering the names of those who have died today. We look at these images of people that have experienced death, but they're not defined as dead people. They're full of light, and they're full of life. And you know, for those of you that have these people that are in your mind even now and in your heart, we will pray, may their memory be eternal. And you know, that's the reversing of a curse. An old curse in the Oriental world, may your name be forgotten by God. And we turn that around and say, may their name be forever remembered. Be remembered by God and then held in the fullness of being, so that we can say that those that have died in Christ, they're not dead. Not dead as in sometimes we ourselves experience death just in our exhaustion or being carried away by things of fear. As the gospel started off this morning, don't be afraid about all the turmoil that's around you. Don't be terrified by that. Don't waste your energy on fear, because ultimately your life will go on even when your body might be destroyed. And those that we venerate in the icons, and what we are venerating in the icons, is this expression of the fullness of life. So those that we commemorate that have died, it's because we believe they truly live. And so their existence is in a place of fullness. And we are reaching out to touch that life even now as we pray. And pray also that it will inspire us, so that, as the poet Thoreau said, you know, when he was asked why he went out after being a successful poet, if one can be such a thing, you know, and having made a living being a poet, that's even maybe a greater miracle, built a great home for himself and his family, and then after all of this, the last years of his life moved way out into the woods behind his estate. And everybody said, "What's wrong with you? What are you doing?" And he said this very beautifully, and I can't remember the words, but something like this, that I went out into the woods to live, because how terrible it would be to live one's whole life only to die and then find out that you had never really lived. So I want to live, he said. I want to suck out the very marrow of life and that's what we celebrate in the icons. People that have tied into the very source of life, which is Christ. So that's probably enough for now. And then we'll go upstairs later after we finish celebrating here and also feeding the body. We do have to take care of the body, so we'll do that after the